everyone, welcome to Momspiration Monday. I am Christine with Momspiration 412, founder of EduPlay. And tonight we have our guest, Katie, with us. Hi, Katie.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey guys, how are you? If you were on, this is a new way we're doing it today. We're doing it through Zoom.
Well, I can start into my story and we'll see if Christine pops back on. Um, I know that last Monday she was speaking about grief and going through grief. And so her and I met about a year ago at Pittsburgh Mom's Blog, an event they had in the spring. And I was telling her about our story and how I kind of got to where I was at that point in time. And so she invited me on to kind of tell our story, our family story, and how our foundation came to be. And I'll start from the beginning. In 2016, May of 2016, we welcomed our second son, Toby. He was born May 27th, 2016. And my husband is a teacher, and so he was home for the summer with us. And we have an older son, Luke, who at the time was almost 2. And we had a wonderful summer. We did everything with the boys. We went to the zoo. We went to Idlewild. We did all the fun things, that you want to do during the summer. And we just had a remarkable summer together. And then August rolled around, and Dan got ready to go back into the classroom, and I was finishing up my maternity leave and getting ready to go back to work. And I was at work for about 2 weeks. And August 24th was a normal day. We got up just like we had been getting up. And, as you can imagine, with 2 little ones trying to get ready for work and school and the babysitter, the morning was crazy, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary from what we had experienced. And the boys were good, and everyone was up and got fed, and we were, out the door. And I took them over to our babysitters to drop them off, and Dan went to school, and I dropped them there and took them inside. And I, kissed Luke on the cheek, and I leaned down and kissed Toby on his forehead. And I just said, you boys be good and have a great day. I'll see you at home, and Dad will pick you up. And I went to work just like any normal day. And I was in a meeting for work, and I got some phone calls and some text messages while I was there and while I was at a meeting. And when I came out of that meeting, I had learned that Toby had stopped breathing, and that they had taken him to the hospital by ambulance. And Dan was calling and, trying to get me to get there. And I made it to the hospital, and Toby had passed away, and the doctors and nurses there in the emergency room had tried everything that they possibly could to revive him, but they couldn't revive him. And they said that he went down for his afternoon nap and he just didn't wake up. So Dan and I were just in complete shock. And the grieving started right at that point, as you enter that room and find out the news. And the first couple of weeks were very, very hard. And I feel like I spent a lot of time in a fog. I remember some of those pieces. Some of those days are very, very vivid memories to me. And I can remember like the most minute detail of those days. And there's other things and big chunks of time that I just don't remember at all. And so about a month after Toby had died, and and we were told that he passed away from sudden infant death syndrome. We were just really kind of in shock. It was something that we knew about, but not something that had really been talked about with us, whether it was with our OBGYN or the pediatrician. So it was just something that was very shocking, and we just felt like, we didn't do anything wrong. He was the happiest and healthiest baby boy, and his heart just stopped. And I think that was probably the hardest piece of that whole traumatic experience to swallow, is that we would never have an answer as to why Toby died. And, you go through as a mom, how much guilt do we carry as mothers, as fathers, as parents, for what we feel like we should have done for our children or what we could have done for them. And, they fall and skin their knee, and we think, we shouldn't let them do that, or we shouldn't let them climb the steps. And so when you think about a parent's grief after losing a child or after one of the children dying, it's just something that is just really unsettling, and very hard to deal with on a daily basis. And my background is marketing and writing. My degree is actually in journalism. And so prior to even having Luke, I wrote and did a blog talking about our journey through not being able to conceive and how that felt, and then going through a miscarriage and how that felt. And so, like I said, about a month after Toby died, I started journaling, and I was doing that really for myself. It had been recommended to me through a therapist to really write down the things that I was feeling and the things that I was thinking about, and those memories that were coming through my mind, because if I got them out of my mind and on the paper, then that would help me kind of work through some of my emotions. But my biggest thing was, and as difficult as this may seem for some people to understand, I didn't want to lose any of that day, because for me, that was every moment that I had left of Toby, and I didn't want to lose a piece of that. And so as heartbreaking and as emotional as some of those pieces were, I didn't want to ever forget them. And so they told me, to write them down, and then they wouldn't be gone. They would just, help to kind of make space in my mind for me to be able to think about other things and to work through this, but I would still have those pieces. And so that's what I did. I started writing, and the more I wrote, daily, honestly, I thought, some of the questions that we were getting just from family and people that we saw, and then going back to work, I just thought this would be something I should write about this and post these things so that people understand, what we're going through. Because when you're not in it, it's not easy to understand. And from a grieving parent's perspective, it's not something that we want any parent that has to go through the death of a child. We don't want that or wish that upon anyone. But we also want to be able to help people understand how we work through the grief and what the grief is like, because with any grief, and this is something that, Christine had talked about last week when she was talking about types of grief, there's no timetable for how long you grieve. And there is no set point that says, at 3 months, you should be here. At 6 months, you should be here. At a year, you should be here. That's completely impossible. It is something that should never be said to someone that is grieving. And it only hinders the grieving person's process, because they feel, again, like they're not doing something right. And that's just really, really hard and difficult to work through. So one of the things, that I kind of had noted here was just to talk about a little bit the relationship between my husband Dan and I, and working through this while still working on our marriage. So the death of a child is hard to comprehend at any stage, but when you add your marriage and parenting your living children into that, there are so many challenges and so many ups and downs with that. And, for Dan and I, Toby died in 2016. It'll be 4 years this summer since we lost him. And there are days where it's just a bad day for me or for him. It's not for any particular reason. Of course, there are bad days on the anniversaries, on his birthday, just certain days, milestones from in the 12 weeks that we had him that are difficult for us to go through every single year. And it will be that way for the rest of our lives. But there are also days throughout the year that are just regular days that you wake up and you are just completely consumed with memories of Toby and things that we did with him. It can be something, as plain as the weather outside. You could walk outside one day and it just feel like a day that you had with him. And it is just something that is all consuming, and it just is hard. And you just have to walk through it. And one of the things that at first was really hard for me was to kind of give into the grief and let myself grieve when I needed to. And if that meant I was at work and I needed to close my door and cry for 20 minutes and get it out, then I needed to do that. Or if I needed to leave and take a walk to get through that time, then that's what helped me. And I think when we think about these timetables and we think, I should be this much further along, or I shouldn't feel these things anymore. I think that makes the grief a little bit worse if it can be, or if that's understandable, because it's just something where we've got more pressure, pushing down on us, and grief. It clouds your mind. It gives you a sense of insecurity, and it's just really hard to work through. But I started to feel myself like when I let my body, my mind go through the grief and sit with the grief when I had it, and on the days that it was just absolutely consumed my entire day. When I was able to do that, the next day, I felt like I had lifted a little bit of that grief off of me. And I just felt like it gave me more air, more room to grow, and just be able to talk about how, what we were doing on this journey and how we were taking another step. And so, what Dan and I really found within our marriage and for each other is that we found, we could figure out the days that were not good days for either of us, and the best ways to support each other in that day. And the support happened at different times in different ways. Sometimes I know for me, support wise, I just want somebody to sit with me and let me cry, or cry with me. Other times I don't want to talk to anybody. I just need to be by myself and work through that. And there are other times that, it really helps me just to be with Dan and Luke and Zeke, our other son, and work through that together, and just have time just with my family and spending those minutes together. So that was really a piece that I learned going through grief is how to deal with it. And I think another point to that is that we all deal with grief differently. And I had someone say to me about a month or two after we lost Toby, he was a dad who had lost a child probably about 20 years ago. And he said, I've always said to people, you grieve however you need to grieve. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, you do what you need to do to deal with the grief. And that's something that 3.5 years later has just really stuck with me, because I felt like it was such an honest answer. And there is no one that can tell you how to deal with the grief or what to do. And there are many people that will give you suggestions. Read this book, watch this show, go talk to this person, join this group. And all those things, you can't do all those things at once. Grief is enough to work through on its own, let alone add different pieces of life back into it. And that just makes it difficult as well. So we got into 2017. We were about 6 months following Tobys death, and Dan and I decided that we wanted to start a foundation in his memory, because we wanted to be able to support other families and other infants, parents, caregivers, and also find a way to carry on his legacy, because we wanted Toby to be as much a part of our lives and a part of our family's lives, and be able to share his joy that he brought to our family for the 12 weeks that he was here with others. And so we founded a nonprofit called the Little Fox Tobys Foundation. And with that partnership, or foundation, excuse me, we developed a partnership with a company called Owlet, and they are the makers of a smart sock, which is a piece of technology that is a monitor for infants, and it goes on the baby's foot. It is meant to be used when they are brought home from the hospital, and they're meant to wear it during bedtime, during nap time, anytime they're sleeping. They should have this monitor on their foot. The monitor actually takes their vitals, their heart rate and their oxygen levels while they're sleeping, and it is connected to a base station, which really is just a round device that sits and is plugged in, and it sits next to the crib, so it connects the data. You can look at the data through your phone. The base station will alarm if the vitals are low or high, outside of range for an infant from 1 day old to 12 months old. There are a lot of people that use the sock past 12 months, and there are weight limits to, there are 3 different sock sizes that come within the monitor. And so as long as the infant can put the sock can go on the infant's foot and still fit securely, and you're not getting any alarms on it, you can use it up to about 18 months. So we formed this national partnership with Owlet, and we started fundraising to purchase these monitors and donate them to families here in Western Pennsylvania and across the United States. So families can fill out an application on our website and submit it to be considered to receive a free Owlet smart sock for their baby. And we have found that to be something that has really helped us. We have formed some really wonderful relationships with families across the country. We have heard from other parents who have lost children. We have heard from other parents who have struggled with infertility for years. We have heard from parents who have had a stillborn or late-term miscarriage and are now having, their baby, their rainbow baby, some call it. And those are the families that we really try and help because we can relate so much to them. But there are many families that are getting ready to welcome their first baby, their third baby, and they just want that peace of mind. They want to have this monitor. They've heard stories like ours, and they want this tool in their home to help them with their infant. And so we have been able to give monitors to almost 200 families in about 18 months' time, and each monitor is $300. And our purchase is matched 1-to-1 from Owlet as a partner with them. So they are helping us, carry on Toby's name. They're helping us tell his story and spread his story. And it is a beautiful story for people to hear. And it's also a story that gives education to, always wanting to do the right thing. And SIDS can happen to anyone, and that's scary. And it's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about because of the subject of it and because it just can bring anxiety. But we also take a lot of time to educate parents and single moms, single dads, younger parents about the safe sleep practices, the ABCs of safe sleep, and how to put your baby to sleep. They should be put to sleep alone on their back and in their crib or another safe sleep surface. And they are to share a room but not a bed with you. And that's the best place for them, is in their own sleeping environment by themselves on a flat surface. And, we hear a lot, and I feel like you see a lot of things that talk about, as new parents, whether it's your first child or your third, we're all exhausted and we want the baby to sleep and we want to get our rest too. And so oftentimes we don't do things in the best way to put our children to sleep. And I cannot tell you how much just a couple minutes or a couple seconds of paying attention and doing it the right way and putting your baby down the right way means when your baby is not here anymore. And for us, Toby was put to sleep in a safe sleep environment. He was alone. He was on his back. There was nothing else in the bassinet with him. And so those are not things that played into SIDS for Toby, but they are still ways that SIDS can occur for other babies. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we're not only giving pieces of technology and devices away that can help monitor your children, but we're also supplying the educational piece of it and how to put your baby to sleep, because the monitor does not prevent SIDS. It's a tool to be used in conjunction with safe sleep practices in your home and in your caregiver's house or facility with your child. So that's really how the foundation came to be. And the first August, which would be in 2017, we wanted to do something to honor Toby during the month of August, because we knew that those were the final weeks that we had Toby with us. And if we didn't do something positive in his memory, we would end up just, counting down the days on the calendar until the anniversary of his death. And so we actually decided to do a random acts of kindness campaign in August. And so we started promoting it through a Facebook page that we had created for the foundation. And we started it on August 1st with the goal of having one random act of kindness done in Toby's name in every state. And it was pretty remarkable how everything took off and how the stories were spread, our posts were shared across the country. And in the first week, we had half the states covered across the country. And by the time we made it to August 24th, we had at least one random act of kindness done in every state. And we had 3 countries that Toby's story and his little cards that we had made for the Random Acts of Kindness campaign had been shared. And that was just really a piece of the grieving process that Dan and I, wanted to do this. And it was really selfishly for us. It was to help us get through August, those first 23 days, knowing that a year ago we had him with us and he was here just like he should be. And seeing people share his story and do random acts of kindness for other people during that time was just something really, really special for us. And it not only helped us heal, I think it helped other people understand our grief. It helped spread Toby's story so that people knew what we were doing. So we had more people following the foundation and our mission and the families that we were trying to help. And so it just turned into a really positive thing for us. So this past August, we hosted our 3rd Random Acts of Kindness campaign, and it's grown tenfold. And it's just something that's really, really amazing for us to see and for us to do during the month of August. And the amount of people and businesses that want to help and want to be a part of it is just really, really remarkable. So, yeah, I mean, other than that, just, on the foundation front and working through growing the foundation, growing the amount of infants and parents and families that we can help. We are having, our foundation is hosting our inaugural gala in May of this year. On May 2nd, it's going to be at the Museum Lab in Pittsburgh. And the whole purpose of that is it's an evening to celebrate Toby's life. It's an evening to celebrate his legacy that has grown to into something that's really making an impact for families across the country, as well as here locally in Western Pennsylvania. And it's just really part of where we have come as we have traveled through grief. And I really don't think that I can stress enough the importance of knowing that whatever kind of grief you're going through, whatever kind of loss you're going through, one, you're not alone, and you shouldn't feel alone or shouldn't have to feel alone. There are resources and there are people and people within the medical community and people just like myself who have gone through grief that like to talk with other people about our grief, even though it may not be the same. It's still a part of our life, and it's still something that we have to carry every single day. And so I think that's one very important thing to know, and to just never feel like you're alone in your grief. And secondly is, I kind of reiterated before, is the fact that you're there's not a timetable for grief. And I talk about constantly when people ask me how we got through it. And I always have to gently remind them that we didn't get through it. We still live it every single day, and we will live it every single day until our time is up. Toby is our son. And when people ask us how many children we have 3 children. And if you ask Luke, who is our oldest, how many brothers and sisters he has, he'll tell you he has 2 brothers. He has Zeke, who is here on earth with us. And we welcomed Zeke in 2018. So he is a little over a year old. And that was the biggest blessing to us. And we know that Toby had a part in picking him for our family and sending him here to help us heal. And Luke will tell you that that's his little brother, and they have a brother, Toby, who is in heaven. And so, part of our grieving process is also being truthful with Luke, and being honest with him and let him talk about Toby in whatever way he would like to. And so I think that's another part of dealing with grief when there are children involved too, is that's just it's a whole different dynamic to the grieving process. But Dan and I have really felt like it's best to be truthful with Luke and to let him work through grief and talk about whatever his feelings may be, whether it's being happy or sad or just, remembering Toby in any way he wants to. And so he is encouraged to talk about him and in any way and at any time that he wants. And so he's very open and vocal about that. And then, I think the other thing too is just being able to sit with your grief when you have it, and be okay with grieving at any point that you need to, whether it's, a week from the time of loss, a month, 6 months to a year. It's all part of that process, and there's nothing wrong with you feeling the way that you do in your time, because there's no clock for that, and no one can tell you exactly what what that timetable is. So that was that's kind of my story and where I've come through this with grief. I'm looking. Christine is commenting on here. I didn't see her jump back on though. Sorry for my pause. I was just looking to see if she was able to jump back on with us. So I know without her being on here, I'll just sort of wrap up just knowing what we had talked about. Christine's going to share with you on the page some resources that I sent her. And I just picked a couple for this discussion. I know that she did talk last week about books, and I think books are wonderful. I think books are wonderful, especially for dealing with grief with children. There are a few, and The Invisible String was one of them. And there's another one, Everything Will Be Okay. I will post some pictures of those. We have them in our home, and we've read them. I can't even tell you how many times with Luke and now with Zeke. And they're just really, really good things, to have as resources. And I'm sure you could find some at your library too. Our library has been really good with that. And she'll share some of the links with you that I sent for groups and whatnot. But if there's any questions, or if you're going through grief and you would like to talk, I'm here. I'm more than willing to speak with you. Or if you have any questions about our foundation or our story with Toby, I would love to talk more about that. And please feel free to reach out either through our Facebook page or my personal account on Facebook. And I just want to say thank you to Christine for this opportunity, letting me talk to you guys, and being able to just share our story and share Toby with you this evening. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to speaking with you guys again soon. Thank you.